Welcome back to the channel. I took a week off last week from making a video. I didn't have time to set up the tent or do anything like that. Gonna have a couple of different videos. Gonna do the tent this weekend for sure because we have to. But this video is about my best hunting buddy. I had to put my lab down, my yellow lab down, which I didn't ever put him on the channel. He was, I don't know, 3 years ago, even 4 years ago, he really didn't hunt that much. But 3 years ago, we took him out pheasant hunting, and he just walked with us. He wasn't a flusher or anything like that. He really didn't pheasant hunt. He was a duck dog. But if you couldn't find a bird, you send that dog after it, and he would find it. He was really, really good. And he just, he couldn't get around well, and he just got to the point, he was 13, would have been 13 years old in November. And the last time we took him hunting, he kept falling in holes and hurting himself and cutting himself. So basically put him back in the truck, and he only got out to use the bathroom and eat, because I didn't want him getting hurt. And he's just slowly gotten worse. He was a happy dog. He was really happy, which made it tough to make the decision. But they went out there. The other dogs got out, Gus and Buck, and while he was eating, they got around and got excited. He fell down, couldn't get back up. I picked him up, and he just couldn't keep himself up. So we made the decision to go ahead and put him to sleep. But I was just going to talk about, and it's kind of sad, I don't have very many pictures with him. I don't know why. I took pictures with him all the time, but I guess changing phones over the years, I just lost them, couldn't find them. I just have the one picture that's on the screen of him, but he's a great dog. So back in 2013, 12, 13, somewhere around in there, he had an interesting birthday. He was born 11/11/11. So, but in 2012, it would have been 2013, because I'd had a chocolate lab way long time ago, and I always wanted to get another one. So in 2013, I think it was, I decided I wanted to get another lab. And at the time, I was renting a house from a guy who was in College Station. He was going to school, ex-Navy, and he was going to school, get his degree, and I needed a place to stay where I was working. It was in College Station, and so I just rented a room from him. And I told him I wanted to get a dog, and he was fine with that, but he really didn't want me having a puppy. He didn't want to have to deal with that. So I started looking into it, and then I was called as a trainer there between College Station and Caldwell. And I said, hey, if I buy a puppy, can you train him and get him training for me and get him past the, peeing on the floor or pooping on the floor, and just train him to be a good hunting dog. And he was like, yeah, I can do that. I don't have any puppies right now, but I can help you find a puppy from some people out of good stuff, and then I can train him to whatever you want him to be trained to. And I was like, he said he usually didn't do that, but he usually waited 3 months, and then you'd have the puppy for 3 months, and then he would take it over and train it. But he understood the situation I was in. But he's like, hey, I got this dog that I was training to be a field trial dog, and he's a really good dog, but he just doesn't have the heart to be a derby dog, is what he called it. And he was out of a really, really good dog. He was AI breeding. And actually his brothers Same mom, same dad, different litters. Over the last 2 years, had enough points, and the way he sold his dogs was, and it probably is not the same anymore, but it was probably more, but it was $1,000 Derby point. But anyway, his previous brothers that he sold them for $50,000 a piece, and he said, I'm not gonna use this dog for field trials, and I'm looking to sell him. You should come take a look at him, see what you think. So I drove out there, and I was didn't know what to think, and I'll tell you, it changed my mind. If you don't want to have to deal with the puppy phase, and you can find a dog that's been trained like that for a year and a half, that'd be it ended up being a good deal for me. So I went out, took a look at him, and it was more than I wanted to spend, but when you think about it, and he'd been trained for a year and a half, and the guy charged $600 a month for training, and it means, I was actually getting a pretty good deal. And if I bought a puppy, it was going to cost me, back then, we'll get to what puppies cost today, but back then, a puppy was going to cost me $1,000, $1,500, and then have to train him for 6 to 8 months at $600 a piece. I was going to get a pretty good deal on this dog that was fully trained. They could do triple retrieves and double blinds. He was really good. So I said, yeah, well, let me think about it. He said, well, I'm going out to work him this weekend over here. Here's a pen. Just come out there and tell me what you think, and watch him work and see, and then make up your mind if you want to do it or not. So I went out there, and to me, having labs and just being happy when they go get my birds for me trained, to having a dog that could do what he could do and saw what he could do. He might not have been a Derby winner or master hunter or anything like that, because I never took him to do it. He could have passed his master hunter, right then. I was sold, and I went and got him, and went over there and bought him, and he started living in the house right away. He didn't ever really have any accidents, and he lived with me for a while down in when I was in Victoria, not too long after, and then he ended up living with my dad most of his life, because I got a job where I was going on the road all the time, really couldn't keep him. So he spent a lot of time at the rest of the time at my dad's house. But he was a great dog. That dog, I'd take him out and train him and work him, and went duck hunting with him a couple times. And when I say duck hunting, I'll use that term loosely. You'd jump in ponds with him, but you just put your hand down. You'd be walking along and sneaking up on the dam, put your hand down and say sit, and he would sit there, and you'd walk up and you'd turn around and he would be still sitting there. And I was like, man, that's so awesome. He'd come up, tell him to come up, and I remember we shot some ducks with him off that pond, and he swam across, man. He went a long, long swim, chased this one crippled down, and brought him back. And I was like, this is awesome. Well, not too long after that, probably that coming right after duck season, my dad noticed he was limping, and took him up to our vet, and she thought he might have tore his CCL, which is the equivalent of a human ACL, and took him over to A&M, and sure enough, he had it tore, and they did a surgery called TCPLO surgery. And it's where they go in and they basically cut the bone and everything, rotate the leg a little bit, and then put a plate across it so it won't ever tear. So we got that surgery done, And the worst thing about that surgery is now you have to walk him on a leash. You got to put him inside a small kennel where he can't move around much for 3 months. And my dad had to deal with that because I was on the road. And he was, finally got, after 3 months, we could let him off the leash. And my dad probably waited more than 3 months. And he let him off the leash, and he ran down so we could start rehabbing him, getting him back in shape. And he let him off the leash the first day to go use the bathroom. And he ran to the back of the pasture. He turned around and ran back. I don't know if he stepped in a hole or what, and he yiked and came up there carrying the other leg. And I think I was actually home when it happened. I was inside and came out there, and he's holding it up in the air. So we took him to the vet the next day, and sure enough, they said it might happen, but he tore the other one. So we couldn't get A&M, couldn't get him in. They were like, oh, it'll be 3 months, and we weren't going to let him have him suffering for 3 months on a hurt leg. So we took him over to a place in Round Rock, and they did it like that week. I don't remember if that week or the next week, but took him over there and they did it and did the surgery, and now he's back into the same thing, 3 months on the leash, but we knew one thing: he wasn't ever going to tear him again. So he spent 6 months basically in a small enclosure and on a leash all the time. So we rehabbed him, and I don't think he got to hunt that year because of all that. He wasn't ready. We left him with the border we used. And then the next year we took him hunting. But even after that, I really didn't work him that hard. We went hunting in spurts in a little bit and go up to Kansas hunting, and took him with us. And I'll never forget the time that we were walking this one field, and we call it the long walk, or it's a really long walk-in area up there that we go hunting, and then we always hunt it. And it's usually full of quail. And we went walking, and my big thing is I always wanted to get a pheasant. Everybody else shot a pheasant with me. It always seems to happen that the pheasant would fly the opposite direction of whatever part of the line I was on. So they were all hunting quail, and I really wanted to get a pheasant. So, and he was walking with me, and he usually stayed with me. He didn't really, when we were out hunting like that. And he was, like I said, he was a water dog. He was a duck dog. So he stayed pretty close. He always stayed walking right by me. And I said, okay, well, y'all go over there and y'all walk that. Me and Tull are gonna go walk this stuff over here, because it looked like a place that a pheasant would be on the edge of the field, and down a little dip where there was some thick grass and everything. So we went over there and we walked in, and we were walking and didn't see anything, and they'd made their way back down, and they were standing down at the bottom, and they evidently jumped some quail, and they flew over towards me and him are, and we were walking back towards them. And man, we busted them. And it was one of those deals where I shot to the left, hit one, shot in the middle, hit one, missed one, and was empty. And I took another step because I sent Tull to get, or I was about, Tull had already went and got one bird, and he's coming back. And I took another step. I had a shell in my hand, and another one jumped up, and I dropped it in in there, loaded it, and shot all at the same time and hit another one. And Tull went and got those birds and brought them back. That's the one time I'm like, that memory will stay with me forever. It was the coolest thing ever. I thought, and except and going and chasing down that one bird it was a really long swim. And then, after that, he just walked around with us. I remember one time my brother shot a bird. Someone shot a bird. I can't remember who it was, and it went down into a creek bottom. And I just got him up there and set him up and pointed him up and was like, dead bird, and got him and sent him down in that hole. And he went and got it, and he came running back, and he was looking around, and he didn't know how he was going to get back up because it was a steep embankment. And he just looked up at me, and when he looked up at me, I put my gun down, and he saw me put my gun down, and that dog just jumped up, and he knew I was going to catch him. And I caught him and helped him get up the bank. And there was another time up there that we were walking, and he wasn't a small dog. When he tore, part of the reason he tore his CCLs were he was overweight. But the second one he wasn't overweight, but the first one he got overweight. He weighed about 105 pounds. But by the time the second one come around, we'd got him down to 75 pounds, and he pretty much stayed in the 70 to 80 pound range the rest of his life. But there was this one time, that sucker, we went to this one field and there were sticker birds. I remember I reached down and picked up that dog, 80 pounds, and I don't know how far of a walk it was, but it seemed like it was forever carrying that dog. But I carried him out of that sticker bird patch all the way back to the truck because he kept getting stickers in his feet. But yeah, so that's just a couple little stories. He was a good dog. He was happy, like I said, he was happy in the end. It just his legs gave up on him, and but he's one of the best dogs I've ever had. And the only thing that I wish is I could have went hunting with him more, and took him out duck hunt more. But I really didn't have a place to duck hunt. But he'll be missed. And can't replace him, but I'll end up, I want to get another duck dog. I just don't know when it'll be. Might have one that I talked to a friend of mine that has lab, and I was gonna get one out of that breeding if it takes. So. And that was before any of this happened. So I was planning on getting one earlier this year, and they didn't get bred. And I talked to some people last year about getting a lab from some people here in Texas and in Mississippi. And I've talked to a lot of people, but they want $3,000, and I'm just like, wow. That's almost as much as I paid for Tull, and he was fully trained. So lots changed in the last 12 years on buying labs, I found out. But he'll be missed. I already, when I went up there and the next day to leave, or that afternoon to leave, he had a kennel outside, and I walked by and to get in the car, and I turned around to say bye to him, and he wasn't there. So, but he was a good dog. But thanks for watching. Catch y'all next time.